In the heart of ancient Jerusalem, a city steeped in history and faith, one of the most debated events in human history unfolded: the resurrection of Jesus Christ. This event, central to Christianity, is said to have occurred here, where Jesus made 7 remarkable appearances after his death, before ascending into heaven from the Mount of Olives. Many scholars argue these appearances provide compelling evidence that the resurrection was a historical reality. Let's explore each of these encounters, unravel their significance, and consider why they challenge skepticism about this extraordinary claim. The story begins in the pre-dawn darkness, as Mary Magdalene, a woman once tormented by demons, walked alone toward Jesus' tomb. She was joined by a small group of women, carrying spices to anoint Jesus' body, a Jewish custom to honor the dead. As Mary passed the site of Jesus' crucifixion, memories flooded her mind. Just days earlier, she had witnessed Jesus endure unimaginable suffering, beaten, mocked, and crucified as crowds shouted, "Crucify him!" Roman soldiers had gambled for his clothes as he hung on the cross, gasping for breath until he died. The weight of that loss pressed heavily on her heart. But when Mary reached the tomb, she was stunned. The stone sealing the entrance had been rolled away, and Jesus' body was gone. Inside, 2 mysterious figures sat calmly. Tears streamed down Mary's face as she assumed someone had stolen her Lord's body. The figures asked, "Why are you crying?" She explained her grief, but as she turned, a man stood before her. He echoed their question, "Why are you weeping?" Through her tears, Mary didn't recognize him until he spoke her name, Mary. In that moment, her sorrow turned to joy. Jesus was alive. She rushed to tell the disciples, and soon the other women arrived, equally astonished, and ran to share the news. Yet, the disciples dismissed their testimony. In first-century Jewish culture, a woman's witness held little weight in court, often deemed unreliable. This raises a fascinating question. If the resurrection story was fabricated, why would its authors choose a woman, especially one with a troubled past, as the first witness? A made-up tale would likely feature a prominent male disciple to lend credibility. This detail suggests the account reflects reality, not invention. The news of the empty tomb spread quickly. Peter and John, 2 of Jesus' closest followers, raced to the tomb and found it empty, just as Mary had said. But Jesus wasn't there. He was already on his way to his second appearance, this time to 2 lesser-known disciples walking the 7-mile road from Jerusalem to Emmaus. These men, Cleopas and his companion, were discussing the rumors of the empty tomb when a stranger joined them. Unbeknownst to them, it was Jesus. They shared their confusion and grief, unaware they were speaking to the risen Christ. Only when they reached Emmaus and broke bread together did Jesus reveal his identity, then vanished. Amazed, they hurried back to Jerusalem to tell the disciples. This second appearance adds another layer of intrigue. Why would Jesus appear to 2 obscure figures rather than his inner circle? If the disciples were crafting a fictional resurrection, they likely placed themselves at the center to bolster their authority. Instead, the story highlights ordinary people, reinforcing its authenticity. Back in Jerusalem, as the Emmaus disciples shared their encounter, Jesus suddenly appeared among the group, his third appearance. The disciples, startled, thought they saw a ghost. Jesus rebuked their disbelief, inviting them to touch his hands and feet, and even eating fish to prove he was no apparition. Yet doubt lingered, especially for Thomas, who wasn't present. When told of Jesus' appearance, Thomas declared he wouldn't believe without touching Jesus' wounds. Days later, Jesus made his 4th appearance, specifically for Thomas. He invited Thomas to touch his scars, and Thomas, overwhelmed, professed his faith. This moment is striking. The disciples' skepticism is laid bare. If they were inventing this story, why portray themselves as faithless and stubborn? Their flaws lend credibility to the narrative, as fabricated accounts typically glorify their authors. The 5th appearance occurred in Galilee, where the disciples had returned to their fishing trade. As they toiled on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus appeared on the shore. Peter, overjoyed, leapt into the water to reach him. There, Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" A poignant echo of Peter's 3 denials before the crucifixion. Each time Peter affirmed his love and Jesus entrusted him with leading his followers. Then Jesus foretold Peter's martyrdom, saying, "When you are old, another will carry you where you do not wish." History confirms that Peter, like most disciples, died brutally for proclaiming Jesus' resurrection. This raises a critical point. People may die for a belief they think is true, but would all the disciples endure torture for a lie they knew was false? That they Jesus for a lie they knew was false. Is Losfera for a lie they knew was theater, smartivis, as theorfivis, the spheolafers is a curolevele, teaches radical. The sixth appearance was monumental. On a Galilean hill, Jesus appeared not only to his 11 disciples, but possibly to over 500 followers at once, as recorded in the Bible. He commissioned them to spread his message worldwide. This mass appearance is significant. While skeptics might dismiss a few witnesses, 500 people claiming to have seen the risen Jesus is harder to ignore. Many of these witnesses faced persecution, yet none recanted. Secular scholars like Gerhard Ludman acknowledge that the disciples genuinely believed they saw Jesus, even if some dispute a physical resurrection. The final appearance occurred on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus gathered his disciples one last time. As they watched, he ascended into heaven, promising the Holy Spirit would empower them. This moment marked the birth of Christianity, fueled by the conviction of those who claimed to have seen, touched, and eaten with the risen Christ. Skeptics propose alternative explanations, such as hallucinations. However, medical experts note that group hallucinations are statistically improbable, especially involving hundreds of people over weeks. The disciples' transformation from fearful deserters to bold martyrs further supports their claims. Secular history records their gruesome deaths, yet none renounced their testimony. The resurrection's evidence lies not only in these appearances but in their cumulative impact. The empty tomb located in a public place was never disputed by Jesus' opponents, who instead spread rumors of a stolen body. The disciples' willingness to die, the inclusion of women as primary witnesses, and the sheer number of eyewitnesses challenged the notion of a fabricated story. As you reflect on these events, consider their implications. Jesus' resurrection, if true, offers hope beyond death. He promised to save, not condemn, those who turn to him. His brutal death on the cross, followed by his triumph over the grave, invites us to embrace his forgiveness. If this story resonates with you, explore it further, perhaps through the accounts of Jesus' final hours, which reveal the depth of his sacrifice.